God, guys. Thunder Rosa has just officially won the AEW Women's Championship in her hometown of San Antonio, Texas. And basically, I guess you could say the fourth match that Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker have had against each other. They've had three matches. The first being a beach break last year, which Britt won that by interference. Thunder technically won the second match, which this is what this reference to. The first, uh, going back to nearly a year ago. Tomorrow will mark exactly a year, but they said it was a year because it's basically about just about a year at this point that their match took place. A non-sanctioned lights out match that they had last year. And so that was their second match that Thunder Rosa won, which of course the record did not count. Her win did not count. And it didn't affect Britt Baker's win-loss record. And their third match was at Revolution, which Britt Baker won because of a bunch of interference, and she retained the title. But what a way for Thunder Rosa to win here, guys, right in her hometown. And I gotta say, I thought, like I said before, the match they had at Revolution, it didn't live up to, the height as big as their match was last year. But I think a lot of that had to do with number one, the placement it was on the card Revolution, and then number two, like I said previously, I just feel like the interference in some ways kind of killed a lot of the match. But this match right here, just like that lights out match from a year ago, it was no interference at all. The only thing that happened where it kind of felt like it was going to maybe be some interference is when they had the ref bump, when they knocked the ref down, and the ref was out for a while until Aubrey Edwards came and actually replaced the ref that was in there. Um, that was the only moment where it seemed like maybe Hager or maybe one of them would get involved. It seemed like Rebel or Hager would get involved during that period. But no, that did not happen. Just like the lights out match they had last year, like I said, this match was a really good match. I do think the lights out match was somewhat better to the degree. And they actually had a callback to that match when Britt Baker took out the thumbtacks and put it on the ground, and this time around she was actually the one who first put Thunder Rosa into those thumbtacks. But they had some, when they got the weapons out, it got pretty brutal. Britt took a nasty bump on the chairs that she stacked up because her and Thunder Rosa was hitting each other on the top of the ropes, and Thunder just happened to knock Britt down. She came crashing down the chair, so that was a pretty nasty bump. You also had Thunder Rosa. I think at one point she had suplexed Britt Baker through the table. And another thing I just want to point out is the crowd. Now, this was in Thunder Rosa's hometown, and you did have a lot of Thunder Rosa fans, but I have to say, this was not a pro Thunder Rosa crowd. Like, it was a um, a big amount of fans cheering for Thunder Rosa, and she had a really nice entrance. I got to put that out too. I love her entrance of the women all coming together and singing. Yeah, I thought that was a really good way for her heritage and things like that. I really liked the way she made her entrance. Really nice way to see her come out. Really loved that. And, she was feeling it, man. She came out, the crowd was in it. But I got to say, this was not a pro Thunder Rosa crowd, like I said. And maybe in some ways the fire kind of wear it off after their match Revolution, but this was actually kind of a mixed bag here because you had a lot of Thunder Rosa support, you had a lot of Thunder Rosa fans, but you also had some people cheering Britt Baker. So you had people saying "Let's go Rosa," and then some people were saying D&D. So it wasn't like a massive amount of Britt Baker fans out there, but if you compare this to when Britt went against Red Velvet on the very first episode of Rampage, when you compare it to that, I think it was either that very first episode or the very next week, back on the 13th of August. When you compare it to that of last year, where it was completely pro Britt Baker, where the fans completely booed Red Velvet, like she had no fan support at all. She was pretty much acting as the heel in that match, even though Britt was the heel, but because it was in her hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, like it was literally like everyone was cheering for her. Compared to that, that wasn't really the case here. Like I gotta say, the crowd was pretty mixed. You had a couple of people saying D&D, and you had a lot of Thunder Rosa support and a few fans that were booing Britt Baker, but she didn't have that type of heat that they gave Red Velvet, who wasn't even supposed to be in a heel in their match, but just by being in Britt Baker's hometown, she got a lot of heat, and they were actually cheering for Britt Baker. But in this case, you had some fans that were actually cheering for Britt Baker. It wasn't like completely pro Thunder Rosa where everybody was against Britt. So I do want to point that out about the crowd. But like I said, this match, this cage match right here, was definitely a lot of fun. It took a while to really pick up, but you know when they got the weapons and everything, it really went downhill from there. It really kept kicking up from there. And like I said, when they got when Britt Baker got the thumbtacks, that was a callback to the match last year with how that went down. But you know, he actually had a spot. Um, Britt actually started bleeding pretty early in this match because I think Thunder was hitting her so much and she clocked it with something, and Britt was actually she started bleeding pretty early. Then eventually Thunder Rosa started bleeding because they actually hit each other with the steel chair a good amount of times. So that was one of the reasons. And Thunder had actually hit her finisher on Britt pretty early, but that was when the ref bump took place, and the ref wasn't able to come and stop and make the count. So she had Britt pinned at one point. The ref was down, and then that's when Britt had Thunder Rosa pinned when she went for I can't remember the name of the move. She went for this move from the top rope, and it was really sick. It was kind of like man, I can't think of the name of the move. I'm really sorry, guys. She hit her on top rope with this move, and I know the name of the move's not coming to me, but she hit her on top rope with that, and that was when the ref was still down, and that's when eventually Ari Eggers came and tried to make the count, and Thunder Rosa kicked out. That was a pretty sick way she hit that from the top rope. Um, so like I said, it was definitely back and forth between these two, and like I said, and then it got to a point where um, Thunder, she ended up power bombing Britt through the thumbtacks and hit her finisher again on Britt Baker to secure the win and to end the title reign of Britt Baker becoming the new AEW Women's Champion, World Champion. Wow. You got to give it to her. You figured that I was really interested on how they were going to book this, being that it was going to be in Britt Baker's hometown. I was wondering, were they going to keep the title on? I mean, not Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa's hometown. Were they going to keep the title on Britt, or were they going to have Thunder Rosa, win here? So I was really interested to see how they were going to book this, because very rarely do they have people lose in their hometown with AEW. So it was pretty interesting how they booked this. And Britt, she had a pretty solid title reign. Won the belt last year, Double or Nothing against Sheeta. And I actually thought that she was going to hold on to the belt just as long as Sheeta did, because Sheeta held it for a whole year before she dropped it to Britt. So I thought Britt was going to hold it for just as long, but she held it just under a little over almost 10 months that she held the belt, about 200 something days. So that's still a pretty solid title reign, even though much of her title reign, revolved a lot of interference and stuff like that. But I think overall it was getting to a point where some people may have thought that somebody else maybe could have faced her, took the title from her. But the way they have been building this, this had been built for a year. The main gist of the story was that Thunder had beaten Britt, but she didn't beat her when it counts, and that was something that Britt kept emphasizing, that the win she had did not count, and that was the gist of the story. And so Thunder finally proved that she could in fact beat Britt Baker when it counts, and this does affect Britt Baker's win-loss record. So not only did it affect it, but in the process, she ended up winning the belt. So it had been the story for about a year now. Very solid build. It kept them away from each other for quite a while after their last encounter. They didn't cross paths up until just before Revolution, when it was revealed that the reason why Mercedes Martinez got herself disqualified in her match against Thunder, I think that was on the episode of Rampage when that happened, was because she was basically working with Britt Baker. Britt Baker was the one who told her to soften her up. So that was why she got herself intentionally disqualified. And of course, that didn't last because she told her she was supposed to win the match. She wasn't happy that she didn't win the match. And when they faced each other again, she failed to win. So, they ended up beating her down. So that was kind of how that whole thing went. For the longest time, you didn't really see these two cross paths like that after their match last year. And Britt has constantly said, like, even though you won the match, people mainly who really came out as a star, and she said, it was her. And in a way, she's right, because that was pretty much what set her on the map, and eventually would eventually lead to her winning the AEW World Women's Championship. So, like I said, it was definitely a really amazing match. I probably would say the one last year was slightly better to a degree, but I would say this one was a lot better. Definitely a lot better than a Revolution match by far. A lot better than that. Really good match. I'm definitely interested to see where Thunder Rosa goes from here. At this point, this is the fourth. Wait, I think it's the fifth AEW Women's Champ. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to see where Thunder Rosa goes from here. And yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. So, congratulations, Thunder Rosa. I saw AEW Dynamite kind of late tonight. So, aside from that match, the only other match I've seen was the Scorpio Sky and Wardlow match, which, it was pretty obvious MJF and them were going to get involved in that and helped Scorpio Sky retain. And then the Hardy Boys versus Private Party, I thought that was a really good way to get the Hardys back up and going together. With the Private Party, it was a pretty decent match between those two teams. Awesome thing, especially the legendary Hardys and Private Party. So you had that, but other than that, I seen this and yeah, it was really good. So that's pretty much it, guys. Sign over here, Mr. Flex. I'll talk to you guys in another video. Peace.